trying to sort out what's wrong with that thing in front of us, the M113, nicknamed Tiny Teddy, with the Australian modified Saladin turret put onto it. And this one's got quite a bit of provenance in that it actually did some service in Vietnam and Southeast Asia. Generally this thing's been a paragon of reliability, that it's just runs and runs and runs, and people love riding around in it, and it's reliable and easy to drive and all that sort of stuff. But for whatever reason, we went to start it the other day and it ran for about 4 or 5 seconds and then it stopped, and since then it's refused to start up. Bit of a view inside the back of the fighting compartment. I replaced the batteries and fixed up some problems with the battery leads because the engine was cranking over really slowly. Unfortunately that didn't fix the starting problem, so it's back to square one. Swing myself in carefully into the driver's compartment. Let's have a bit of a look-see and see if by some miracle maybe it's fixed itself over the weekend, eh? Stop lever in, handbrake is on, transmission selectors in neutral, push the start button. Yeah, so it's doing something really interesting where you first hit the button and it sounds like it fires. Then when you release the button, it sounds like it fires again. White smoke coming out of the exhaust, and that's the exhaust there. Means you've got vaporized fuel coming out, but it's not actually lighting off. So I'll just crank the engine over for a bit. Yeah, so there's not a sausage, there's no white smoke coming out, which says to me that there's some sort of fuel issue, or we've dramatically lost so much compression that the engine has decided that it won't start. First port of call is to check fuel system, make sure that the fuel feed from the tank is working, the engine driven fuel pump is okay, the fuel filters are not blocked, and all of the lines are in good condition. Alright, let's get some of these covers off. Smell of old diesel. Great. Not too heavy. Oh, spring loaded. Civilized. There's the donk in there, so that's the Detroit diesel 6V53, 6 for 6 cylinders, V configuration, and I think it's 53 cubic inches per cylinder capacity. First thing I'm going to do is make use of my old friend some Lazarus in a can and see if we can get it to fire, because that should eliminate a whole bunch of different stuff if we can do that. I'm going to take off the air filter housing so I can squirt it directly into the intake and the scavenge blower. There's a bit of a weird odour in there. It smells a bit like boiled diesel. There's like a wispy vapor coming out of it, which is odd. So anyway, I'll give it a good squirt down its hoofer. Okay, reach reach down, crank it. Zero. Oh, what have we got here? It's not often that you use all 5 sensors to try and work out what the issue is here, but this is most unusual because I'm getting a strong smell of the ether starting fluid, plus also this vaporized diesel smell again coming back out of the intake, which has got me thinking. So these Detroit diesels are a 2-stroke. Inlet and compression is one operation. Power, stroke and exhaust is another combined operation. And so the engine, out of the same sort of capacity and all things being equal, will make more power than what a 4-stroke engine will. However, that does mean that the engine needs a little bit of help to work. This is a device called a scavenge blower. So all 2-stroke diesels will have this. The purpose of the scavenge blower is to provide slightly higher than atmospheric pressure on the intake side of the engine, so that when the pistons are going up and down inside this and the inlet and exhaust ports are being covered and uncovered by the piston, that small amount of positive air pressure in the intake helps force the exhaust out of the cylinder and push the fresh air charge in, so that when the piston comes back up again on the compression stroke and then the injector squirts in the fuel, it lights off and goes bang, and then the whole process starts again. This is starting to look like there could be an issue with this scavenging blower, the way that vapor's coming back out through the intake and the engine's not running. I think the next thing I'm going to try is actually get my inspection scope to see if the scavenge blower is actually rotating when I start the engine. So it doesn't look like much, but I've got the probe looking down in the top of here, and this shiny silver thing here behind this grate should be one of the rotors for the superchargers. Ready? 1, 2, 3. It's confirmed that the scavenge blower is not rotating, so something's broken in the drive system for that, which is not really good news. I've consulted the Detroit manual. Behind this cover plate here, it gives you access to the blower drive shaft. In order to actually extract the shaft out, I'm probably going to have to take off the fuel filters. Diesel running up my arm. Thankfully my armpit is higher than the lower level, so at least it's one crevice of my body that it's staying out of. Bolts out of the fuel filter mount. Oh, bloody hell, the world's longest bolts. So this has got silicon on it, which is possibly an indication that this job could have been done before. So this is supposed to be the blower drive shaft in here. So I've got to get this little circlip out here. Trick being not to lose it, have it ping off into the distance. because I'll never find it again. Gotcha! Well, that's come out easy. Look at that. That almost never happens. So you don't need to be a mechanic to know that that is bad. But it's also very good too, because that's the issue with this, why it's not working. So there you go. It's had a major failure, and if you look at it carefully, there's a whole bunch of stress fractures all around the periphery of the shaft. Thankfully, I've actually got a replacement shaft, so all things going well, we should be able to get Tony and Teddy back up and running. I'm pretty sure I read somewhere in an engineering publication that it was actually US technology and manufacturing know-how that actually helped Rolls-Royce achieve the fantastic power outputs they could with their Merlin aircraft engines during World War II, because of their understanding of managing torsional vibrations and other loadings, which enable Rolls-Royce to drive the big superchargers that they had hanging off the backs of the Merlin engines. So yeah, bit of trivia. Humble little part like this. Shaft should fit in quite easily, I think. Just like that. Light finger pressure. Very cool. Yeah, that's it. That's centered. Nice. I'm absolutely convinced that this is not the first time this part has been replaced. I gave the blower a cursory check over, and the lobes rotated nice and freely. There was no end float, side play, no tight spots or anything like that. So I'm just wondering if it just could be a case of they're a bit of a consumable. Drag Tiny Teddy back to my lair just to tidy up some loose ends. So there's the fuel line that's in the back of the engine, coolant hoses which are looking particularly ropey, especially that one on the bottom of the radiator. It will mean that I'll have to drain the majority of the coolant out of the system, because the radiator's sitting up top there, so it's way above the level of these hoses to be replaced, and I'll have to pop this housing off of here and probably make a new gasket. Air cleaner back in, check over, test drive, but nothing we can't manage. Yeah, time for a bit of Stanley knife action. Cat slicing my finger off. There. That's how you do it. Now this coolant lead pipe is at a low point at the cooling system, and I've got no easy way of draining it out, so I'm just going to pull the thing out and get the bucket brigade happening and see if I can catch as much of the coolant as possible. No use forestalling the inevitable. Yeah. Yeah, it's a pretty flogged looking bit of hose, so good thing I replaced it, I reckon. Only problem is the actual pipe fitting below doesn't look real flash either. I've pulled the coolant balance pipe, or whatever the hell you'd call it, off the engine pack, and you can see at this end here where it fits up into the radiator, the end of it's pretty flogged, whereas the other end's in good condition. So it's giving me the opportunity to try out a little toy that I've been meaning to use for a while. Look at that. Impressive. But you know what? Going from this to this is like a 10,000% improvement. That's come off easily. I expected to have to struggle with it a bit. Oh, yeah, look at that. At least I now know what this turnout is here. It's a thermostat housing, so there you go. It's what regulates the coolant flow through the engine to keep it at a certain temperature. Just going to put a thin smear of sealant on the gasket face here, help us avoid any potential leaks. Alright, so that hose has come on nicely. Nice. So this is a quick release fitting for the return line from the injection system that goes back to the tank. Pretty sure the issue is the O-ring that's in here is just a bit flogged. Fossicked around in our O-ring kit and found a O-ring that seems to be a suitable size. I lubricated the O-ring with a bit of diesel fuel, so it's always good practice that whatever media the O-ring is supposed to seal, you should give it a coating in that before you put it in. So you've got to sort of do a little bit of jiggling around to get the O-ring to seat properly. It's fallen into the groove quite nicely. I've screwed the quick release fitting back onto the hose. Rethread the fitting and the pipe down behind the engine so that it's not going to get pulled into the drive belt for the generator. Alright, so that snaps into place nicely. It's nice and firm. Let's get some coolant back in it. Get it warm and check the levels, check for any leaks. Brake on. It's in neutral. tons and tons of fun. Responsive, it's got plenty of power, easy to drive, comfortable, sounds great. It's easy to see why it's such a crowd favourite when it comes to AusArmourfest. So we'll see you there.